Wi-Fi will work. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. We'll see. Because it sure won't work on my internet. I don't know why. But anyway, what's it like to date a CPA? Just be grinding away on poor old Cargill. Well, let's see. They dress good. Um, they wear a suit well. They're incredibly good with numbers, like unreal good. Um, and I'm not sure what formal education is required to be a CPA, but I ought to research that just for the heck of it. I was with the guy 6 years, uh, and was engaged to him the last year, uh, which I guess that was a big fake him out gig. I don't know, but it was kind of interesting. His dream girl was just like that girl with the hook nose that was in Who's the Boss, that old TV show. That I guess it was from the 80s, 90s, something like that. And he just thought she was just the world. And I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't think she was incredibly good looking. Her personality on the show was neat. I watched the show a few times, but I've never been really big on TV. Um, but uh, he his it was interesting, like his choice of wives. His first wife, Ivy June, that he had his two kids by, was uh, I met her years after I guess they were divorced. She worked at the water company in town, and I think it was only because somebody else told me that one of his friends. I don't recall Carl volunteering that information, but so usually I paid my bills in person all the time. And I preferred that better so I get a receipt right there and all that stuff. I don't do online stuff. I don't do automatic billing. It's too hard to turn that stuff off. Um, and back then there wasn't. I don't even think there was any computerization back then where you could do that kind of thing. But anyway, so she was kind of more like I would suppose, kind of plain Jane, kind of station wagon type of girl, I guess. She's deceased. I guess about 9 or 10 years ago, from what Joe St. Columbia had told me. And she was probably more like the Ozzie and Harriet type of marriage. Even though Joe St. Columbia was so mad that Carvel caught Ivy June, he was always forever mad. Well, you got Ivy June, man. But anyway, and actually, really, Joe's wife was quite fitted. They were quite fitted pair, oddly enough. He was kind of a runner, but and his wife was not, and they were both Italian. And uh, I don't think she would ever let go of Joe if she was still alive. Kind of surprised. I figured that she would have survived him, but it didn't happen that way. She got real sick. She wasn't a smoker or anything. She got real bad sick. But anyway, so nothing like a tourist showing the vet. But anyway, so she was very kind of plain Jane, it appeared to me. And again, I didn't, know her until years after they had supposedly divorced. His second wife, Evelyn, kind of, I guess, appeared to be more like that lady in Who's the Boss in that TV show. Evelyn had the hook nose. She had, when I met her, she had like shoulder length, kind of Michael Jackson permed hair. Um, that long, like telephone cord curls that kind of perm. And blonde hair, tall, thin, blue eyes, very southern drawl type voice, but very pretty voice. And she used to love to sing. She thought she could sing real good. She liked at Patty, whatever it is, and like country music and stuff. And she was always kind of go go go, very go go go, very colorful. Um, and I don't know how the guy rides that thing, and they're really expensive too. But she was quite interesting, very colorful individual, and very rare for that particular area out by Memphis. And I was kind of a lot the same, I suppose. Rare for that area. Always wore heels. She was the same way. She always dressed, always very nicely dressed, and very hip. She always had the neatest clothes and the jewelry. Her face was always done. Her hair always looked perfect, and she was always laughing and smiling. Um, but she was incredibly smart. I mean, outrageously smart. This woman could pick up the phone and dial it to whoever you might need, whether it be, the vice president of the United States to, the governor to the mayor. I mean, she had the connects. She was incredible for a female. And it's kind of funny because and then there was me and it's kind of wow because he he was kind of boring. Now he was very proper, okay, like you could take him anywhere. He didn't eat like a dog at the table or anything like that. Um, and uh, he wore a suit well. He liked very expensive penny loafers, nothing less than $400 at Dillard's. He loved to shop at Dillard's. He uh, was wonderful about, you know, like once a week or so, going to a very nice dinner for the evening out. No kids, anything like that. Sometimes with kids, because I had a young daughter at that time. When we had moved in together, I think she was like 2 or 3, maybe. And uh, he kind of tolerated her, but he didn't. He used to have this saying that was like, "I didn't take you in to raise," kind of thing. He used to say that a lot, just in the real world to anybody. I didn't take you in to raise. Just real weird. Um, his thing was playing solitaire in his recliner. He could do it for hours, and he did it while talking on the phone, while watching TV, and that was his thing. When he got done with work at his office, he had his own office in office buildings, and he generally worked every day. And when he got off, he usually came right home, and he might have a beer or soda, and then he would sit in that recliner and play solitaire and put something on the TV, which was usually uh, Mayberry RFD or The Godfather. Or there was this show that come out of England. It was like Cheers or something, and it was about people that were selling in a retail clothing store that was kind of like Henchies or something or May Company. It was kind of, and it was kind of interesting, dry English humor. Um, and then he kind of liked Benny Hill. But that's all he would ever watch. There's nothing else he would ever watch, whether it be on videotape or on TV. And it was just like clockwork. That was just his thing. His favorite music was like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. Um, yeah, like I'm trying to think if we ever went out dancing. I'm thinking not. I don't think we ever went out dancing, which I've always loved to do. Um, but maybe he couldn't dance. Hell, I don't know. Um, But that was kind of a problem. It's ultimately boring. Like he would sit on the couch for hours and talk a little bit sometimes, and then people would call, and you had to just sit there while he was talking and laughing and giggling with his friends and stuff while he was playing solitaire and had the TV running too. And it could go on for hours, and it could be men, it could be women, just whatever. Usually he didn't discuss business at home. Like if a farmer called him and said, "Hey, look, what about this on my taxes or something?" Usually what he did was he would only do that kind of business in his office. Now he did tax write off part of the house as business because he had a desk there. So if he wanted to do some work there to bring home from the office, but man, I think I saw that 2 times a year. But he might actually bring a couple files with him or something. But that's it. I mean, he didn't work in the house at all. And so, um, but now he worked lots of nights. And I used to go checking on him and stuff because I felt something's wrong. When you feel something's wrong, you're usually right. But I could never catch him or anything. He might be up till 11, 12, 1 in the morning, working during tax time in his office. And I would drive up there and kind of go around the block and just to see if his car was still there because I had trouble believing it. But he was always at work and it didn't look like anybody else was there. And I was pretty sure that he was there. Now maybe he might have dipped out, left the car there. I can't imagine because it's such a bad area of town. I can't imagine he would leave the car there. He made a statement one time about a married girl he was dating, at Patty, and how that they used to leave her car at the local hospital, and then she would jump in his car, kind of thing. Interesting, huh? Shady cat, eh? But he couldn't turn a wrench for his life. Oh, I'll tell you a funny story. So one day he decides, that the light switch is no good in the hallway in the house. House is pretty old. It's from 1956. And he is not a wrench turner. He is nothing more than a pencil pusher. Trust me. Trust me on this one. He is not like a regular dude. Mostly guys, some guys, they could turn a screwdriver, they turn a wrench, check the oil on the car, all this stuff. He couldn't do any of that kind of stuff. It was beyond him to do anything like that. So, that ice cold water is pretty good. So, it was real funny. One day he says, "I'm going to fix that light switch." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." Mm-hmm. And so, about a week later, he's got, the screwdriver and all that. And he's like, "I'm going to fix that light switch right now because that thing is just making me mad." And I was like, "Okay." And this guy is a funny character. He was like, he could get his cage rattled real easy. You know, he was kind of like a nervous wreck, like an old woman all the time. It was kind of wild. But anyway, I'm watching him, and he's in the hallway where there's one bedroom, the bathroom, and then doorway to like the front parlor, and then that accesses also the kitchen. So it's kind of in the middle of that side of the house. And so he goes to unscrew the plate off. Then he decides he's got the little light switch thing that he's going to use to replace it. And I'm like, "You don't want to turn like the electric off or anything before you mess with that?" "Oh no, that's not even necessary." And I'm like, "Okay, here we go." I wouldn't even attempt that. I don't do electric work except for on cars. I do not do household electric. No sir, no way, no how. One, because I don't have the formal education for that. Even though I took electric in college a little bit, but still, I don't really know anything about that. I can do plumbing all day long, but not electric. So he goes to unscrew this light switch, and gets zapped. Beep! And he jumps. And I'm like, oh Jesus. And I'm like, Carvel, why don't you, like call somebody to come fix it? You know, no, I should be able to do this by myself. And I was like, well, I said, all you are is a pencil pusher, my friend. That's just you. And I said, what makes you think you're an electrician all of a sudden? Because like this dude didn't even check the oil in his car. He'd buy a car, and it was like, I'll just take it to the car dealership. I'm have them change the oil. Every 3 months. I don't do any of that because it's their job. And I couldn't go a week without checking my car engine. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm just that way. Always checking, looking underneath for leaks or anything. Checking fluids. That kind of thing. And so, anyway, that was pretty wild. But and he was always enchanting when you went out. He treated us like a total lady. And I mean, people, the wait staff always treated us good. He tipped good. That was nice too. Because I've hung out with people that just did not tip good, and it's so embarrassing when you crawl under the table and you're busy like grabbing some money and like shove it in their hand as you're walking out because you don't want the person you're with to see because it's so embarrassing. Always tip the people, man. Tip the folks. Take care of the folks. But anyway, so he enjoyed it. Good fine dining. Now he would brag about how much he spent for like the next month. That was another weird thing he did. He would always brag, "Oh God, we had such a wonderful time at the Peabody in Memphis, and I spent $150." And he would carry on about that just forever. And that was another thing. He was very, I don't know, advertising. you know, just like when you ordered that couch uh, from Dillard's in like the catalog with his Dillard's credit card that was like pretty much maxed out. And he ordered a little tiny, what I call love seat. Uh, but it's the only thing that fit in that room because he had a big bookcase. And he orders this love seat for like $1,000. And I'm like, why? On the fact, it was gray and white stripes. It was big, wide, like 2-inch stripes. It was just strange. And but anyway, yeah, and had to have Samoyeds, and those dogs were like $500 each. And I ended up raising Samoyeds because he would never do anything like that. Oh no! And we made a bunch of money on selling Samoyed puppies and stuff. For the longest time until I left. I don't think he raised any more animals after that because he wasn't capable. He wasn't responsible. He didn't do stuff like he's a pencil pusher, man. Yeah. So, um, I mean, evenings out, formal evenings out on occasion were wonderful. He was just charming and enchanting, dressed well, very proper. But at home, God, it was so boring. It was just like, oh my gosh. And he loved you to just sit there, kind of like, you know, like a parrot, on its stand. Just wanted you to be there and claimed he was just so happy with his little house and you. And he used to say that all the time. He used to come up and just hug me and spin me around and say, uh, you're perfect and I just love you and my little house and I'm so happy with my dogs and everything. And you say that all the time. And, that was pretty much a lie. um, Today, I think he was just always a two-timer. A meat eater. Yeah, that's what I think today. Um, and in my previous vlogs, I mentioned that, apparently he has passed away. It's on the internet. I ran across it the other day. July of this year. Uh, Apparently he left. And oddly enough, he was 88 years old, and I didn't know he was that much older than me. At all. But again, I don't usually ask people their age. If I like the product, then I go for it. And I got through that thing where I gave up on people picking me, and then I wanted to pick, you know. And then I thought, God, my picks are really crappy. So I think I'll just wait for somebody that likes me, and see how that goes. And it's like now I'm just kind of like not even worried about it. It's like the least of my worries at this point. And for a lot of years, I was not with anybody because my ex-husband and what my daughter and I went through, my youngest daughter. That was pretty chaotic and pretty frightening experience, like something out of a bad movie. And she was so little, and she bought me this beautiful sky blue ring, beautiful ring. And she was just little, and she says, I think she was like 6 or something. And she says, I want you to wear this ring. And she put it on my wedding finger. And she says, I don't want you to be married again or with anybody again. And I said, okay. And so I decided, if that bothered her that much for her future, then I probably will just hang loose until she's like 18. Because, or moves out. Because, which I would never, have asked her to move at 18. She left after that, between like 19 and 20, but it her choice or somebody else's choice, I don't know. Definitely coerced. But uh, I just stayed that way. My biggest concern was getting her to 18 and having a happy, good life and a peaceful life. And, my last concern was, dating somebody, um, for those years after what I went through in that marriage. Um, you don't want to bring stuff like that upon your kids, the negativity or anything else. Um, it's not worth it, you know. But anyway, but yeah, so um, Carl was interesting. Nice looking man. I'm not gonna say he was a total stone cold fox. He was just very enchanting, incredible, very charismatic, very charismatic. Um, he was okay, like in the bedroom department, he was all right. Unless the phone rang, then he was like a married man. You know what I mean? He just fractured. Just things would just stop his world instantly. It was just ridiculous. He was so childish sometimes. But he uh, he was charming. He was enchanting. He would spend money for nice things to go out and stuff. Dress good. Really knew his business. I mean, really, he used to do my taxes. So right before all that bull crap happened, um, when we were, had already split up, and he was dating around, whatever. And uh, I came down to his office to have him do my taxes, and just strictly business, And I had like 6 pieces of paperwork between W-2s and winnings at the casino and stuff like that. And he would do all that, and then he charged me like $125 or something to do my taxes, which was neat because I knew they were going to be right. He was very funny about signing that documentation with his name because he was licensed CPA. He told me, how serious it was. You know, he was legally liable for doing those taxes right, and he was very stern about that. He doesn't do any cheating deals. When people say, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" and he's like, "No, I'm not doing it, and I'm not signing my name to it." So he was very, upstanding in that fashion. Um, and he was also city treasurer for quite a long time too. Um, but um, he was really good about doing my taxes. It was really neat because I knew they'd always be right, and all I did was bring down what he requested, and then he would call me in about 2 days and go, "Okay, your stuff's ready," and I would come by the office and I would pay him, and he'd hand me the stuff, and he'd say, "Mail this. This goes to the IRS, and then this is your copies." And then I'll have a copy in my office too. And I would pay him. I'll pay him cash, and and he'd give me a receipt and everything, and I'd tell him thank you. And then one time I came down there and he wanted to do my taxes, and then when I went to pick him up, he said, "Well, I don't think that I should be doing your taxes anymore." I'm like, "Why? Business is business." And he's like, "Well, I just don't think it's appropriate." And it was like, now I have a thing about, if I've been with somebody, I'd like to stay friends. I don't want to be in a big hate thing or any other kooky mess. If you split from somebody, they know so much about you, especially been with them for a great deal of time, that it's sad to throw away a friendship. And you should try to part friends. You don't have to sleep together anymore. You don't have to argue or anything else. Just be friends. Start where you started at the beginning, and keep it like that. And I think it's a great place to be. Well, and if you have a problem or something, you can call them up and say, "What do you think?" And that you could trust their answers or their reason. And so, I thought that's how things would kind of end, but they didn't. Because after that, it was a big, like a turmoil game, I guess, between one of his girlfriends, that Karen girl, and him. Kind of some game playing like they used to do, like Carvel used to do with Evelyn after they divorced. He was really horrible to her. He would call the police all the time. He was so paranoid, swore she was driving her in the house. And I'm like, I don't think that girl even cares. I mean, she had guys stacking up like pancakes around her that just adored her, wanted to take her out, wanted to marry her, from the wealthy to the poor to people in bands. That there's a band, country western singer that stayed at her. She had a guest cottage on the property. She used to rent it to people, sort of like an old timey B&B before B&B started. And so this famous country and western singer, I can't think of who it was, stayed at the cottage, and he was writing music and stuff. And he stayed like for a week. She cooked him food and everything, kind of to she called it Southern Charm, was the name of her place. And it was, she wanted to do like bed and breakfast thing. So he stayed in that cottage and write music at night. And then he wrote a song about her that he actually published. And she used to talk about that all the time. Oh, he wrote a song about me. And that was pretty cool. But I mean, I don't think she was real concerned about Carl because she had a life. She had a life away from this guy. Um, I mean, when she would appear, at the store or at a nightclub for a short bit, she always came by herself and always left in her own car. She didn't bring people with her or anything else like that because, like she invited me out one time and I said, "Great, I'll go with you." Sure, yeah. But she didn't want to ride me in her car. She wanted to bring her own car by herself and leave in her own car. It's really funny. And then, I learned the value of that years later because I got some funky situations. And I'm like, man, if I'd have been like Evelyn, I would have brought my car and not come with these people. Because when you want to leave, you got no car to go. Yeah. So, she was actually very smart. But yeah, so I just find it interesting that they were together as many years as they were because he just was really boring, honestly. It's sort of like being with a gamer. Somebody just sits on the couch and plays video games all day long. How fun would that be? I'm thinking not very fun. You got to get out and smell the roses. You got to, go enjoy life, travel, be things, do things. And this, sitting at home, being a couch potato just is a bunch of nothing. All it do is put fat on you and you're not like broadening your horizons. You know what I mean? So I thought about well when Carvel got old, what it would be like, and it would just be worse. I imagine he was definitely a handful, and I have a funny feeling because he was kind of like an old woman. He get like real rattled and nervous wreck sometimes. Um, the way he acted about some situations, he would like overreact kind of thing. Um, and he loved to just talk crap, you know. He's a whiner, you know, whiner. You know, like every time Evelyn would drive by the house, oh my God, Evelyn drove by the house. So what? Who cares, right? So what? You know, the day goes on. Who cares? But it would just rattle his cage, and he'd have to call 5 friends and tell them, oh my God, Evelyn drove by the house. It's like, who cares? You know, why don't you just call her and go, why are you driving by the house? How do you solve the problem, man? How do you solve that problem? So anyway, yeah. So I suppose he was probably such a rattle cage mess, you know, in the latter years that they probably put him in a nursing home. I just have that feeling. And it's probably where he ended up. I bet he was a mess. And especially if he was still dating that girl out of all those other girls, um, I don't have a doubt in my mind that she would have put him there because she probably didn't want to do any babysitting. Um, she had a lot of money, though. She had a lot of her wealthy relatives pass away, and I'm sure she got chunks out of that. And I'm sure she put out a huge amount of money to bail Carvel out because financially he was a disaster mess. And my dad warned me early. He was like, get away from that. If the guy won't put the house in your name, get away from that. Yeah. And he was right. He was right. My dad didn't have to say no, I won't loan it, you know, with interest. He just said, get away from that. And I fully understood. The guy didn't love me enough to put my name on part of the house if my daddy would step up to the plate. So I didn't even get that far. Yeah. Didn't even get that far. My dad's smart. He's basically always right. He was sure right then. God. Oh my God. But anyway, so yeah, that's what it's like to be with a suit man. Make sure, you know, that what you wish for, you know, don't wish too hard for what you might want because then you might not have really wanted it at all. That's a fact. That's a fact. Um, you know, I always like long-term relationships, and I don't want to be with a guy that's a runner, you know, at all because of the illnesses that have come across through the years, from all sexual illnesses to AIDS and all this other caca. You know, no one wants the kiss of death. Okay, so yeah, you know, and sometimes things just don't work out, and sometimes people change. You know, a relationship, just like a long time marriage, takes a whole lot of work. You know, I have a baby sister that's been with the same guy for like 99% of her whole entire life. And, you know, I hand her the golden platter because that's pretty incredible. I couldn't hold a candle to that. But I also wasn't one that just slept with everybody and dated a whole bunch of dudes, you know, and that I have a very small list of gentlemen that I've ever been with in my life. I'm very selective, and I didn't just throw my stuff away. You know what I mean? Although, you know, I have friends that called me archaic because I couldn't just like go out to a nightclub and pick up a dude and do him for fun because I don't think it's fun. Um, I'm a Cinderella girl. You know what I mean? Yeah. So most of the people I've ever dated, I dated for a very long time before I ever slept with them. It had to be natural attraction or nothing at all. You see? Um, yeah. But again, sometimes people change, and sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes people are just meat eaters to begin with, and you can't fix it. It's just the way they are. It's sort of like alcoholic or a druggie. You can't fix it. The only thing to fix it is they have to have the will to do so and a doctor. Leave it to the pros. That's right. Yeah. I used to have that saying, love will conquer all. I can fix it. Thought I could fix it with Bill West. Love will conquer all. He just loves me more than the whole world. No. I beat my head against the wall to try to save somebody, and it just never got better. And finally, I was done. It was way too much to handle. just way too much to handle, and it got to the point of embarrassing. Okay, so yeah, sometimes you just got to make changes to have a more peaceful, smoother life. You cannot babysit a grown person. It's a pain in the butt to have to babysit a grown person. So yeah, but anyway, but I mean, all in all, it was a charming, romantic, enchanting life with Carver. Again, I would have loved to have been his wife. And, he had talked about it. And then, when we were engaged, and then that was real strange how that ended. Um, but it was okay. It was one of the hardest relationships to stop, I guess. How would you say it? To end, to stop, to be away from. I really was very much in love with him. He was like my right arm, and for many years, and I looked up to him, but it hurt, because I really loved him. And a good friend of mine told me one night, he says, I was out at Wayne Webb's club and I was drinking a Coke, and he sat next to me and we were talking. He was having a terrible time with this girl he married short time, and she was a total flipping lunatic. And he had a kid by her, and that was the worst part. She was 100% out of the freaking book lunatic. And she was young, but she was all the way live, okay? And he was just real slow paced, easygoing kind of dude, and he was like, God, what did I do? And see, now he's got to put up with that crap for the rest of his life because he got a little bitty kid, little boy that was just the sweetest, and she was a flipping lunatic, and she was all over the town kind of lunatic. Oh my God, what a cuckoo! And he told me, he said, he says, Red, he said, um, it hurts, it really hurts. He says, but it takes time. It takes a long time to get over somebody. And because you figure you just shake that crap off, you know what I mean? But you don't. It takes a long time to heal from something like that. And I'm not going to say you just fall in love with somebody else immediately and it erases it or what. I think that, you always have a lot of that love in your heart your whole life, um, for someone that you've been close to and shared special times with and all that stuff. Um, I mean, he was definitely a charming chap, but kind of boring. I mean, I, it was just not my kind of life. It's a good thing I worked so much because that was my livelihood outside of the house. Was to be working and see people and hear music and all this kind of stuff. That was my livelihood. So I guess thank God for that. Because I was always the one to chase money, always, and that's a long, long time. I collect dollar bills. But anyway, so there you have it. Uh, you know, love life, live, love, laugh, but don't let your mate um, stop you from seeing the world, enjoying the world, and just kind of take possession of you and just want you to be like a rug. You know what I mean? Because life is so short. Oh my God, time really flies. And if you've wasted your time for a lot of years with somebody that has really held you back from your dreams and your wishes and things like that, you've wasted so much time. So you got to think about that. You got to keep going forward in life. You know what I mean? But anyway, I love you. You guys have a great one, and we'll see you in the next one.